John Campbell stood tall and straight in his crisp black uniform as he waited at the landing pad. The morning air was cool against his face. Next to him sat Max, his German shepherd, alert and watching the sky. The dog's ears perked up before John even heard the approaching ship. "Good boy," John whispered, reaching down to scratch behind Max's ear. "You heard them first, as always." The sleek silver spacecraft broke through the clouds, much quieter than human ships. It was the third alien delegation to visit Earth since first contact 3 years ago. This time, it was the Zarthians, reptilian beings known for their advanced technology and somewhat difficult personalities. John had been chosen for this assignment because of his background as a Marine and his current role in diplomatic security. What the selection committee didn't know was how much he relied on Max's instincts. The dog had saved his life twice during his military service, and John had pulled strings to keep Max with him in his new job. The spacecraft landed with barely a whisper, settling onto the pad as gently as a falling leaf. Steam hissed from vents along its sides. A moment later, a door slid open, forming a ramp. "Remember, be professional," John told Max, who sat perfectly still except for his eyes, which tracked every movement. 3 Zarthians emerged. They walked upright like humans, but had scaled skin that shimmered green and gold in the sunlight. Their eyes were large and yellow with vertical pupils. The one in front wore elaborate robes with symbols that John had been told represented the ambassador's high rank. "Ambassador Vexler," John said with a slight bow. "Welcome to Earth. I'm Officer John Campbell, assigned to your security detail during your stay." The alien's eyes narrowed as they fixed on Max. What is this creature doing at an official diplomatic reception? The translator device at Vexler's throat made the words sound flat, but the disgust was clear. "This is Max, my partner," John explained. "He's a trained security dog. You bring an animal to perform security functions." Ambassador Vexler looked at his 2 aides, who made clicking sounds that John recognized as their version of laughter. How primitive. The Zarthian delegation does not require the assistance of lesser beings. John kept his face neutral despite the insult. "Max is standard procedure for our security protocols, Ambassador. He can detect things our technology sometimes misses." Vexler made a dismissive gesture with his 3-fingered hand. "On our world, we evolved beyond the need to enslave other species for work or companionship thousands of years ago. It's one of many areas where humans seem underdeveloped." Max gave a low growl, and John placed a gentle hand on his head. "Easy, boy. It appears your slave disagrees," Vexler said with what looked like a smile, though on his reptilian face it looked more like a grimace. "He's not a slave, Ambassador. He's a companion and partner. You attribute intelligence to this beast. How fascinating." The ambassador leaned closer to examine Max, who held perfectly still under the alien's gaze. "Your species puzzles many in the Galactic Cooperative. You have achieved space travel and yet cling to emotional attachments to lower life forms." The 2 aides behind Vexler made more clicking sounds, clearly amused by what they saw as human backwardness. "If you'll follow me, Ambassador, your quarters have been prepared according to your specifications." John kept his voice professional despite his irritation. As they walked toward the compound, Vexler kept glancing at Max with obvious distaste. "Do all humans keep captive animals?" "Many of us have pets, yes. Dogs have been with humans for thousands of years. They're part of our history and culture." "A cultural curiosity, then," Vexler said, though his tone suggested he found it more disturbing than curious. "I have studied your species extensively, Officer Campbell, but this practice of keeping lesser beings close seems unsanitary and illogical." John sighed quietly. This assignment was going to be more challenging than he'd expected. Max looked up at him with intelligent eyes that seemed to say he understood completely. The next morning, John walked Ambassador Vexler through the gardens of the diplomatic compound. Max trotted a few steps ahead, occasionally stopping to sniff something interesting. The morning sun warmed the air, and birds sang in the trees. Your Earth has pleasant natural areas, Vexler admitted, looking at the colorful flowers. Though allowing wild creatures to fly about seems dangerous. The birds, they're harmless, John said. Many people enjoy watching them. Vexler's scales shifted color slightly, showing his discomfort. More of your species' strange fascination with lesser beings. He pointed at Max. I still do not understand why you keep this animal close. Does it not have its own kind to live with? John took a deep breath. Dogs and humans have lived together for over 15,000 years. We've evolved together in many ways. They help us hunt, protect our homes, and give us companionship. Companionship. Vexler made that clicking sound again. You speak as if it can understand complex thoughts or emotions. Max understands more than you think, John said, trying to keep his voice even. He can read my emotions and respond to them. He knows over 50 verbal commands and countless non-verbal cues. The ambassador stared at Max with his large yellow eyes. A trained response is not understanding, Officer Campbell. On my world, we use robots for such tasks. John stopped walking. It's not just about tasks. Max is family to me. Family. Now Vexler seemed truly shocked. You consider this furry creature equal to your genetic relations. John thought back to the day he had found Max. He had been clearing buildings in a war-torn city overseas. In a collapsed structure, he had discovered a small puppy, somehow still alive amid the rubble, whimpering softly. The mother dog lay dead nearby, having protected her pup until the end. Something about those trusting eyes looking up at him had changed John forever. Max saved my life once, John said quietly. We were on patrol, and he sensed an explosive device that our equipment missed. He alerted me, and we were able to clear the area before it went off. Vexler seemed to consider this. A useful tool then. Not a tool, John corrected, feeling frustrated. A partner. They continued walking in silence until they reached the main conference building. Other alien delegates from different species were gathering for the day's meetings. John noticed several of them pointing at Max and speaking in their own languages. Your animal has caused quite a stir in the galactic news, Vexler said. Many species find it shocking that humans allow animals inside important buildings. A small group of blue-skinned aliens approached cautiously. One of them held out some kind of scanning device toward Max. What are they doing? John asked, moving protectively closer to Max. The Diraxians are scientists, Vexler explained. They wish to study your relationship with this creature. They believe humans may be using some form of mind control on Earth animals. John almost laughed. Mind control? No, it's just trust and training. Trust? With a lesser being. A new voice joined the conversation. A tall, thin alien with 4 arms approached. Impossible. These creatures must be genetically modified to serve humans. Max sat calmly beside John, watching everything with alert eyes. When one of the Diraxians moved too close with the scanner, Max gave a small warning growl. See, the 4-armed alien said. It shows aggression. Dangerous. He's protective, not aggressive, John explained. He's doing his job. News of the human and his animal spread quickly through the diplomatic compound. By lunchtime, John overheard aliens from at least 6 different species discussing the primitive Earth custom of keeping pets. This is going to be a long assignment, John said quietly to Max as they watched delegates enter the dining hall. Max looked up at him with understanding eyes and pressed his warm body against John's leg in silent support. 2 weeks later, John drove up the winding mountain road toward the summit location. Tall pine trees lined both sides, and snow dusted the higher peaks. In the passenger seat, Max watched the scenery with interest, his ears perking up when a deer darted across the road ahead. Almost there, buddy, John said. Big day today. The Colorado Mountain Retreat had been chosen for the Galactic Cooperative Summit because of its remote location and natural beauty. Security would be easier to manage away from cities, and the aliens seemed to appreciate Earth's wilderness more than its urban areas. John parked in the staff lot and clipped Max's security vest onto him. The patch on the side clearly identified Max as security personnel in both English and the standard galactic language. Lisa Winters was waiting for them at the entrance. Her gray-streaked hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she wore the navy blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. As the lead human diplomat, she carried herself with quiet confidence. Officer Campbell, she greeted him with a warm smile. And Max, of course. How was the drive up? No problems, Mom, John replied. All quiet on the approach roads. Lisa bent down slightly and held out her hand for Max to sniff. The delegates are already arriving. Ambassador Vexler has been telling everyone about your primitive beast companion. She made air quotes with her fingers and rolled her eyes. Great, John sighed. We're the galactic curiosity. Actually, it might work in our favor, Lisa said as they walked into the building. Several species have requested special sessions about human-animal partnerships. They're confused but interested. The main lobby of the retreat was filled with aliens of various shapes, sizes, and colors. Some moved on multiple legs, others floated slightly above the ground. The air smelled of strange perfumes and the slight tang of alien biology. Almost every alien turned to stare as John and Max entered. Some pointed, others moved away nervously, and a few approached with curious expressions. Officer Campbell, a voice called out. A stocky, greenish alien with ridges along its head approached. I am Security Chief Krev of the Moldovi. May I speak with you about your security animal? John nodded politely. Of course. Unlike the other aliens, Krev seemed genuinely interested rather than disgusted. He crouched down to Max's level, careful to maintain a respectful distance. Fascinating creature, Krev said. Our records show that humans have partnered with these animals for thousands of years, but I never understood why until seeing one up close. Its eyes seem intelligent. He is intelligent, John said. Different from us, but smart in his own way. Krev nodded thoughtfully. My species values practical solutions. If it works, it works. I would like to learn more about how you work together. Before John could respond, a commotion erupted at the main entrance. Ambassador Vexler had arrived with his entourage, all wearing elaborate ceremonial robes. Ah, the human and his slave animal are here, Vexler announced loudly, causing several aliens to make sounds of amusement. Still letting the beast roam freely among civilized beings, I see. Max's ears flattened slightly, but he remained sitting calmly at John's side. Ambassador, Lisa stepped forward smoothly. Welcome to the summit. I trust your accommodations are satisfactory. Vexler made a dismissive gesture. They will suffice. Though I must insist that animals be kept out of the main conference room. Some delegates find their presence unsettling. Max is part of our security team, Lisa said firmly. All security personnel are required in the conference area. Vexler's scales flushed a deeper green. Surely you have proper technology for security. Relying on animals shows a concerning lack of advancement. Krebs surprised everyone by speaking up. Actually, I studied Earth security protocols. Their animal partners can detect things our technology sometimes misses. There's wisdom in combining different approaches. Vexler stared at Krev with obvious disapproval. You two have been charmed by primitive methods. Disappointing. As the tense conversation continued, Max suddenly turned his head toward the north wing of the building. His ears perked up, and he gave a soft whine. John immediately noticed. What is it, boy? See, Vexler said with a laugh. Random animal behavior disrupting diplomatic work. But John wasn't listening. Max's behavior wasn't random at all. Something was wrong. John watched Max carefully. The German shepherd was staring down the north hallway, his body tense and alert. This wasn't normal behavior. Excuse me, John said to the group. I need to check something. Vexler made a dismissive sound. The beast probably smells food. John ignored the comment and walked toward the north wing with Max leading the way. Lisa followed them, concern on her face. "What is it?" she asked quietly. "Not sure," John replied. "But Max doesn't act like this without reason." The north wing contained several small meeting rooms and storage areas. As they walked down the hallway, Max slowed his pace and began to sniff the air more deliberately. He stopped at a door marked Maintenance and gave a soft growl. "He's alerting to something in there," John said, reaching for his sidearm. Lisa touched her communication device. "This is Winters. I need additional security at the North Wing maintenance room." Quiet approach. John put his hand on the door handle, but didn't open it yet. "Max thinks something's wrong in here." "You actually believe the animal knows something?" Vexler had followed them, along with Krev and several other aliens. "I'd bet my life on it," John said. "I have before." Krev moved forward. "My species has enhanced hearing. May I?" He placed one of his hands against the door and closed his eyes. After a moment, he looked at John with concern. "There's movement inside. Very quiet. Someone trying not to be heard." 2 more human security officers arrived, weapons ready. John nodded to them and prepared to open the door. "Stay," he commanded Max, positioning the dog safely to one side. John opened the door quickly, and the security team entered with weapons drawn. Inside, they found a young man in a maintenance uniform frantically trying to hide something in a ceiling panel. "Don't move," John ordered. The man froze, then slowly raised his hands. "I was just fixing the ventilation." John noticed small electronic devices scattered on a table. They didn't look like any maintenance equipment he recognized. "What are those?" he demanded. The man didn't answer. Lisa studied the devices from the doorway. "Those look like signal jammers," she said, "and some kind of small explosives." John handcuffed the man while the other officers secured the devices. Outside in the hallway, Max waited patiently where he had been told to stay. "Good boy," John said when he emerged. Max's tail wagged slightly at the praise. Vexler stared at the handcuffed man being led away. "How did the animal know?" he asked, sounding genuinely confused. "Scent," John explained. "Max can smell explosives, even trace amounts. He can also detect when people are nervous or hiding." Lisa called an emergency meeting with the security teams. In a small conference room, human and alien security personnel gathered around a table. "We've identified the suspect as Kyle Benson," Lisa reported. "He belongs to a group called Earth First that opposes alien relations. We found communications suggesting there may be more threats in the building." "Why wasn't this detected by the security scanners?" one alien security chief demanded. "They used materials that can bypass standard scans," John explained. "Our technology isn't perfect. That's why we use multiple security methods, including K9 units like Max." Krev nodded thoughtfully. "A wise approach. Redundant systems increase safety." "We should sweep the entire facility," Lisa said. "John, can Max help?" "Absolutely. He's trained for this." Vexler, who had been quiet, finally spoke. "Perhaps the animal could be useful in this specific situation." It wasn't much, but it was the first time the ambassador had acknowledged Max might have value. The security teams split up to search different areas of the retreat. John and Max were assigned the eastern wing, where most of the diplomatic quarters were located. As they walked, Max kept his nose to the ground, alert for any troubling scents. "Find it," John encouraged quietly. "Good boy, find it." Max suddenly stopped outside a supply closet near the main conference room. His body language changed immediately. Ears forward, tail straight, muscles tense. John recognized this posture. Max had found something dangerous. John called in the alert and waited for backup before approaching the supply closet. Within minutes, several security officers arrived, both human and alien. Krev was among them. "Max is sure there's something dangerous in there," John explained, pointing to the closet. A human officer with a scanner stepped forward. "I'm not picking up any explosives." "Trust the dog," John insisted. "He knows." They prepared to open the door, with officers positioned on both sides. John counted down from 3, then quickly pulled the door open. Inside, they found another maintenance worker hiding among cleaning supplies. He held a small black device in his hand, his thumb hovering over a button. "Stop," John shouted, aiming his weapon. "Drop it now." The man sneered. "Earth for humans. You alien lovers will." A sudden loud boom interrupted him as an explosion rocked the building from somewhere far down the hallway. The lights flickered, then went out completely. In the confusion, the man pressed the button on his device. Instead of another explosion, all electronic devices in the area suddenly died. Communicators, scanners, electronic door locks. Everything went silent. "EMP device," John yelled. "It's an electromagnetic pulse. He's knocked out our tech." Emergency lights flickered on, casting eerie shadows. More explosions sounded from different parts of the building. Screams and shouts echoed through the hallways. The main conference. Lisa's voice called from down the corridor. "They're attacking the delegates." John and the security team ran toward the main conference room, Max leading the way. As they turned a corner, they encountered 3 armed attackers wearing masks and carrying primitive weapons, clubs and knives that wouldn't be affected by the technology blackout. "Take them down," John ordered. A brief but violent struggle ensued. John fought hand-to-hand with one attacker, while security officers engaged the others. Max circled, looking for an opening. When John's opponent knocked him against the wall, Max lunged forward, grabbing the attacker's arm in his powerful jaws. The man screamed and dropped his weapon. Together, John and Max subdued him. With the immediate threat neutralized, they continued toward the conference room. The scene inside was chaos. Several aliens were injured, and more attackers were trying to break through from another entrance. The security teams divided to address both threats. "John," Lisa called from across the room. She was helping an injured blue-skinned alien. "They're trying to target the ambassadors specifically." John scanned the room and spotted Ambassador Vexler cornered by 2 attackers. The reptilian diplomat was attempting to defend himself with a chair, but he was clearly outmatched. "Max, with me," John called, running toward the ambassador. They weaved through overturned furniture and frightened delegates. John tackled one attacker from behind, sending them both crashing to the floor. The second attacker turned to strike John with a metal pipe, but Max leaped between them, his teeth bared in a fierce snarl. The attacker hesitated for just a moment. Enough time for John to regain his footing. Together, man and dog forced the attackers away from the ambassador. "Stay behind me," John told Vexler, who for once seemed at a loss for words. More explosions rocked the building. Portions of the ceiling began to collapse. "We need to evacuate," Krev shouted from across the room. "They've planted structural charges." Through the smoke and debris, John could see that the main exit was blocked by fallen beams. Max barked sharply and moved toward a side door that was still accessible. "This way," John called to everyone. "Follow the dog." Vexler stared at John in disbelief. "Follow the animal." In this crisis, another section of ceiling crashed down nearby, showering them with dust and plaster. "Trust me," John said, meeting the ambassador's eyes. "Max knows what he's doing." After a moment of hesitation, Vexler nodded. "Lead on, Officer Campbell." John pointed ahead. "Actually, Max is leading. We're just following." As the building continued to fall apart around them, the strangest procession in galactic history formed. A German shepherd in the lead, followed by humans and aliens of various species, all trusting their lives to an Earth animal they had previously dismissed as primitive. Max led the group through smoke-filled corridors. He kept his nose low to the ground where the air was clearest. John stayed close behind him, with Ambassador Vexler and the others following. Pieces of the ceiling continued to fall around them. How does the animal know where to go? Vexler asked between coughs. Smoke rises, John explained. Max is staying low where he can still smell and see. He's looking for fresh air currents that indicate a way out. A loud crash behind them made everyone jump. Part of the hallway they had just passed through collapsed completely. Move faster, Lisa urged from somewhere in the middle of the group. Max turned suddenly, heading down a smaller side corridor that many might have missed in the chaos. The dog moved with purpose, his training evident in every step. When they reached a door at the end, Max sat down and looked back at John. "This is it," John said, reaching for the handle. The door was locked. Without electronic keys, they had no easy way to open it. "Step aside," Krev said. The security chief used his considerable strength to break the lock. The door swung open to reveal a stairwell. "Down or up?" Lisa asked, looking to John. Before John could answer, Max had already started moving downstairs. "Down it is," John said. "Stay close to the wall. The center of the stairs might be weak." The group descended carefully. Some of the alien diplomats struggled with the stairs, their bodies not designed for Earth architecture. Humans helped where they could, supporting those who needed assistance. At the bottom of the stairwell, they found another door. This one opened easily, leading to a maintenance tunnel. "This must connect to the outside," John said. Utility access. The tunnel was narrow and dimly lit by emergency lighting. They moved single file, with Max still in the lead. John could hear the dog's nails clicking on the concrete floor, a reassuring sound amid the distant rumbling of the collapsing building above them. Suddenly, Max stopped and growled. His body tensed, hackles rising. "Something's ahead," John warned, raising his hand to halt the group. From the shadows emerged two more attackers, likely stationed to prevent escape through this route. They carried primitive weapons, a baseball bat and a knife. "Alien-loving traitors," one of them shouted. "No one gets out." John moved forward to confront them, but he was tired from the earlier fighting. The attacker with the bat swung hard, catching John on the shoulder. He stumbled back in pain. Max didn't hesitate. With a fierce bark, he launched himself at the attacker, knocking the man backward. The German shepherd's training was evident as he gripped the attacker's arm, forcing him to drop the bat. The second attacker moved toward Vexler with his knife. The ambassador backed away, his yellow eyes wide with fear. "Help the dog," Vexler called to John. "I will handle this one." To everyone's surprise, the ambassador displayed unexpected agility. When the attacker lunged forward, Vexler sidestepped and used his tail to sweep the man's legs from under him. The knife clattered to the ground. John recovered and helped Max subdue the first attacker. Together, they made short work of both threats. "Your fighting skills are impressive, Ambassador," John said, breathing hard. "I was not always a diplomat," Vexler replied simply. Once the attackers were secured with improvised restraints, the group continued through the tunnel. After several more minutes of walking, they saw daylight ahead. The tunnel exit opened onto the mountainside, away from the main building. From this vantage point, they could see the diplomatic center partially collapsed, smoke billowing from several areas. Emergency vehicles were approaching in the distance. "You saved us," Vexler said to John. Then, after a moment's hesitation, he looked down at Max. "Both of you." John knelt beside Max, checking him for injuries. The dog had a small cut on one paw, but was otherwise unharmed. He licked John's face, tail wagging. "I never understood before," Vexler continued, watching the interaction between John and Max. "I thought your relationship was that of master and slave, but what I witnessed today was different." "Partnership," John said simply. "Trust." Vexler nodded slowly. "Your species surprised me today, Officer Campbell. Not just your kind," he added, looking at Max, "but his kind as well." Emergency teams arrived quickly. Medics treated the injured while security forces secured the area. John sat on the back of an ambulance, letting a medic wrap his injured shoulder. Max rested at his feet, alert despite his exhaustion. Lisa approached them, her uniform dusty, but her composure intact. "Good work, you two," she said. "Most of the attackers have been captured. We're still looking for their leader. Any idea who's behind this?" John asked. "We think it's—" Lisa began, but was interrupted by shouting from nearby. A man in a torn business suit was being escorted by security officers. John recognized him as Alan Pierce, a former diplomat who had loudly opposed alien relations after first contact. "Traitors!" Pierce yelled at the gathered humans and aliens. "You're giving away our planet, our way of life." John started to stand, but Lisa put a hand on his good shoulder. "Stay put. They've got him." Suddenly, Pierce broke free from the officers. He pulled a hidden gun from his ankle holster and pointed it at the nearest group of alien delegates. "Earth for humans," he screamed. Without hesitation, John whistled sharply, a specific command he had trained with Max. The German shepherd sprang into action, racing toward the threat. Pierce swung the gun toward the charging dog, his finger tightening on the trigger. John's heart froze. Max. Several things happened at once. John ran forward despite his injury. Lisa shouted for everyone to get down. Security officers drew their weapons. But before anyone could fire, Ambassador Wexler lunged forward with surprising speed. He knocked Pierce's arm upward just as he fired. The bullet went harmlessly into the air. Max reached them an instant later, clamping his jaws on Pierce's wrist. The gun fell to the ground. John arrived seconds later, helping to subdue Pierce as security officers rushed in. Once the man was secured, John turned to check on Max. The dog appeared unhurt and stood proudly, tail held high. "You saved my dog," John said to Wexler, his voice thick with emotion. The ambassador looked uncomfortable with the gratitude. "The animal saved us earlier. It seemed appropriate to return the favor." John knelt down and checked Max thoroughly for injuries, running his hands through the dog's fur. Finding nothing, he hugged Max close. "Good boy. The best boy." Wexler watched this display with curiosity rather than his previous disgust. "Your connection is genuine," he observed. "Not control, but mutual care." "That's what I've been trying to tell you," John said, standing up. "Dogs and humans have evolved together for thousands of years. We understand each other in ways that go beyond words." Pierce was being led away in handcuffs, still shouting about human purity. Lisa rejoined them, looking tired but relieved. "The summit is obviously canceled," she said, "but something good might come from this disaster after all." "What's that?" John asked. Lisa smiled. "Several of the alien delegations have expressed interest in learning more about human-animal partnerships. They've requested formal studies and cultural exchanges." Krev approached, nodding respectfully to Max. "My security force would benefit from creatures with such skills. Perhaps a training program could be arranged." "It's not just training," John explained. "It's relationship. Trust built over time." "Then we must learn about that too," Krebs said simply. Wexler had been quiet, but now he spoke up. The Zarthian Council once believed keeping animals close was a sign of primitive thinking. Today has challenged that belief. He looked at Max with new respect. This creature showed intelligence, courage, and loyalty. These are qualities we value in any sentient being. John smiled. "Does that mean you're changing your mind about pets, Ambassador?" "Perhaps," Wexler admitted reluctantly. "Though I maintain that pet is not the right word. Partner seems more accurate, at least in this case." As the sun began to set over the mountains, medical teams continued treating the injured. Security forces swept the area for any remaining threats. Through it all, Max stayed by John's side, occasionally receiving pats from passing aliens who now looked at the dog with curiosity and respect rather than disgust. "You changed some minds today, boy," John said quietly to Max. The German shepherd looked up at him with understanding eyes and leaned against his leg in response. 1 month after the attack, John and Max stood in the newly rebuilt conference center in Washington, D.C. Flags from Earth and various alien worlds decorated the walls. Delegates from 17 different species filled the room, all gathered for a special ceremony. John wore his formal uniform, freshly pressed for the occasion. Max sat beside him, groomed and wearing a special blue collar with the Earth diplomatic symbol on it. His security vest had been upgraded with patches showing both human and alien writing. Lisa approached them, smiling widely. "Ready for your big moment?" "As ready as we'll ever be," John replied, scratching Max behind the ears. Though I think Max is mostly excited about the treats I promised him afterward. The room quieted as the ceremony began. Ambassador Vexler stepped onto the stage, his scales gleaming under the lights. John was surprised by how different the ambassador seemed now, less rigid, more thoughtful. 1 month ago, Vexler began, his translator making his voice clear to all. A group of extremists attacked our summit, hoping to destroy the peace between our worlds. They failed, thanks to quick thinking, bravery, and something my species had not previously understood: the unique partnership between humans and their animal companions. John felt a surge of pride as Vexler continued. The Galactic Cooperative has created a new initiative to study this relationship. We believe there may be lessons for all our species in how humans and Earth animals work together. Already, 3 worlds have begun limited companion animal programs, with promising results. Lisa leaned over to whisper to John. The Moldovi have adopted a pack of retired search and rescue dogs. Krev sends video updates almost daily. Vexler gestured toward John and Max. "Officer John Campbell and his partner Max, please join me." John walked to the stage with Max at his side. The dog moved with perfect discipline, his steps matching John's. "The Galactic Cooperative presents you both with the Star of Unity," Vexler said, holding up 2 medals. "Our highest honor for those who bring understanding between different worlds." He placed 1 medal around John's neck. Then, with a moment of hesitation that showed he was still getting used to the idea, he carefully draped the 2nd medal over Max's head. The dog sat perfectly still, as if understanding the importance of the moment. "Thank you, Ambassador," John said. "Max and I are honored." "I have also brought something else," Vexler said, reaching into a pocket of his ceremonial robe. He pulled out what looked like a small treat. "On my homeworld, this is given to young Zarthians who complete their first hunt. My elders find it strange that I wish to give it to an Earth animal, but I believe it is appropriate." He held the treat out to Max, who looked up at John for permission. "Go ahead, boy," John said softly. Max gently took the treat from the ambassador's hand, eating it with obvious enjoyment. A murmur of approval went through the watching crowd. After the ceremony, delegates gathered for refreshments. John was surprised by how many aliens approached to meet Max. Some even asked to pet him, though most were still uncertain how to interact with an Earth animal. "He won't bite," John assured a nervous blue-skinned diplomat who was cautiously reaching toward Max. "He's very friendly." "On our world, animals are wild," the diplomat explained. "The idea of touching one is both frightening and exciting." As the evening continued, John noticed Vexler standing alone, watching the interactions with interest. He walked over to join the ambassador. "Quite a change from our first meeting," John commented. Vexler nodded. "I have been thinking about something you said, that humans and dogs evolved together. Perhaps that is what my people missed in our own development. We conquered our world rather than partnering with it. It's never too late to learn," John suggested. "Indeed." Vexler watched as Max allowed a small alien child to pet his head. "My homeworld has many interesting creatures. Perhaps when I return, I will look at them with new eyes." As the gathering came to an end, John and Max walked out into the cool night air. Stars twinkled overhead, the same stars that held worlds once distant and alien, now connected by new understanding. Good job, partner, John said to Max, who wagged his tail happily. The German shepherd may not have understood the politics or the history that had been made, but he understood the most important thing. He had protected his human and done his job well.